The issue, though, is that we have to restore Sankara's place in Burkina Faso. And we have to restore Sankara's family in Burkina Faso. So you cut that deal. Okay, well, fair enough. You can become whatever. You have to publicly regret the murder of Sankara, if possible. Take responsibility for it. And announce a date for the funeral of Captain Thomas Sankara, a state burial where Burkina will recognize his work, and then we can live in there and then move forward as a country. Is that a difficult deal to cut?
Presumably, that would have succeeded more within the junta, but will never get public support. Because two things matter.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Why? The public are going to have a funeral of Sankara.
The gruesome murder of Sankara.
Doesn't matter.
It's difficult for a person to die. And for 27 years, for his shadow to be hunting you. It should tell you that...
I agree. I mean, if you kill somebody in those circumstances, it will continue to hunt you for a long time.
What Sankara meant to the Burkinabés is not just his person. It's about his idea.
Yeah, what he represents.
And the sense of pride and purpose he gives.
So you give him... right now, Sankara has died, so there's very little you can do. But if you want to give Sankara a state funeral, rebury him with the highest honors of Burkina Faso, invite ECOWAS heads of state to come. As I was telling you when we were having a discussion before the program, unfortunately, all those people are dead. But you would have had Che Guevara there, you would have had Colonel Gaddafi, you would have had J.J. Rawlings, you would have had Fidel Castro. Raul Castro is still alive, isn't it?
Yeah, still alive.
Yeah, so you can have a Raul Castro there, and then you can pick up some of the big old socialist names. I guess even your Jacob Zuma or Cyril Ramaphosa would have been happy to join the Sankara funeral. So that will satisfy the people.
Well, presumably, but you see, the problem is that the call for justice in Burkina Faso is far larger than the call for mercy. The call for retribution outweighs the call for...
What do they want to retribute?
You see, he didn't just kill Sankara. He abused a lot of people. There was this human rights abuses under his watch. And one thing you see, what Sankara did, prior to the ascent of Sankara, Burkina Faso was used to supply cheap labor to Ivory Coast. It supplies cheap labor to Ivory Coast. And in return, France also benefit. But what Sankara did was that he sought to give them that sense of independence. But with the return of Blaise Campaore, he took them back to the fold they refused. Even when he went on exile, he went to Ivory Coast.
That's where he is. He's still there.
Yeah, he was a self-imposed exile in Ivory Coast. Back to the same equation. Oufé-Boigny-Mitterrand alliance that took Sankara out. So
yes, but those are his people.
So all the decisions happening today
are still anti-Sankara.
Anti-Sankara, and they don't call for any mercy.
I get your point. But I mean, maybe that carrot has not been stretched to them. That, listen, we'll do what you want, but you need to admit that you killed Sankara.
Well, I also don't know the level of rapport between the S1 members of the RSP, the Presidential Security Regiment, and the larger army. There's this esprit de corps that is supposed to exist within the armed forces.
Yeah, you don't think they have it, eh?
But looking at the elite nature of this unit, they will have liked to be exceptional and exclusive. We can't just...
Well, in Ghana, the reintegration in 2001 did not take that long. Dr. Adom-Otchere, who was defense minister, did an excellent job with it. Bringing 64 infantry battalion officers and men and putting them round the army was not complicated, because they were an elite group, of course, and they were rangers. Most of the officers had trained in very specialized ways. So deploying them in the other unit helped the other unit to have those special skills within. Whether you are infantry, you are recce, or whatever you are, you have those 64, largely infantry and recce that they could join. And the airborne force, of course.
I think, in our case, we had orderly transition.
Yes.
But in their case, it was an uprising that took,
Blaise
Campaore out.
And it's another internal coup that's taking this guy out.
This guy out. So there's not that.
So what's the future for this guy? Because if he doesn't have the support of France.
Another thing that tainted the reputation of the RSP was that even when Blaise Campaore was overthrown and the interim government was established, they mounted a counter coup led by General Dindire. And then the larger army had to threaten them with march to the capital for them to relinquish power for the interim government to be reinstated. So they didn't show that kind of remorse or willingness to be accommodated or integrated into the system. So what do you call it? The dissolvement of the unit was orchestrated by two things: domestic pressure by the people in the larger army, and the threat, or what do you call it, the heavy-handedness of ECOWAS. So all the decisions they took.
So right now, where does this guy stand? Where does Traoré stand? I'm very concerned about where is his support coming from? Because you see, we also don't have Cold War right now.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get proxy support. America is thinking about self.
Yeah.
So
you quite remember one of my submissions on the Ukrainian war. I highlighted the fact that with the war ongoing in Ukraine and the tension between Russia and the West, we could see a blowback in West Africa, looking at the fact that we have Wagner Group in Libya, any divided government, looking at the fact that Wagner Group, Russia through Wagner Group was able to displace Mali, to displace France in Mali. I said it was only a matter of time before we see the next phase. And likewise, Wagner Group was also used by Russia to displace France in Central African Republic. So we are now seeing a Rousseau.
Members of the Wagner Group, are they Russians?
They are Russians. They are ex-Russian military men. But what it does to Russia is that it gives Russia the benefit of plausible deniability. Whatever they do doesn't affect the Russian state.
So where is their base? Moscow.
They don't even have an official website. It's just a.
But when they were in Libya, where were they based? In the Russian embassy?
They were based.
All over.
They were based in the east, fighting.
Do they have air power? Normally they won't.
Well, they go when they are in. They get official support of the Russian Air Force, military, and other side. Maybe through direct delivery from to the state they are working with.
So they are directed to go wherever by the Russian government.
By the by their host country, the host government. But then
okay, so they get into a country on the invitation of a government. So they are in Burkina. So that's what he was trying to invite them in, Damiba. So where are they now? Let's take the map again. Let's look at the map.
So the argument between Damiba and
so Wagner Group is in Libya. Where is that?
Libya.
That's around here. So they are based in Libya.
In Libya, they are siding with Khalifa Haftar. That is the government in the east, Tobruk, against the government in the west, Tripoli. But then, once they are cooperating here, because they have mutual interests, in Mali, the interests diverge and they became hostile to each other. So what happened is that Wagner Group is now working in conjunction with the Malian junta, led by Assimi Goïta, to fight in the northern part of the country after the withdrawal of French forces. So what we are seeing is that Russia is transferring weapons to Wagner Group through the Malian state in terms of direct transfer to the Malian state. But the beneficiaries on the ground will definitely be the Wagner forces on the ground. But looking at the fact that it hasn't yielded much result, but has been able to hold the jihadists at bay to a certain extent. So there was this debate within the junta about whether to involve the Wagner Group or not. But then Damiba was against that decision, but he lost to the larger colleague who wanted the Wagner Group. That's why they issued...
To secure their territory against whom?
Against the Islamist militants who are in control of 40% of the territories now.
Already? But is Burkina Faso not largely Muslim?
It is largely Muslim, but
they don't like the Islamic governance?
We have a distinction between Sufi Islam and Salafist Islam to a certain extent. And then moreover, most of these jihadist doctrine is quite outside the acceptable doctrine of Islam. Because in Islam, we have a distinction between the Meccan verses and the Medinan verses. So some of the verses they use are not verses that are applicable to the situation of today, but they try to justify it. So even despite the fact that they give Islam a sort of, they attack kind of make name and tag them with Islamists and the rest, they are a very fringe of the minority itself. So now that is on the, but then the security situation is that against all this division within the junta is equally the need to secure the country. So Traore and his guys, the current coup d'etat, felt that no, we need to probably get the Russians involved.
So Damiba is gone?
Damiba is gone.
Where is he gone to?
Per report, he's now in Togo. But
Togo?
Yeah.
Not Côte d'Ivoire?
No. But after the coup, this was the decision that was taken by the junta.
Okay, let's go through it.
The constitution was suspended, transition charter was dissolved, the government is dissolved, transition legislative assembly is dissolved, land and air borders were closed, the curfew was there, all political activities, as it happens in a normal coup d'etat.
All activities of civil society organizations are suspended.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
As it happens in the normal coup d'etat situation. But then, having mounted this counter-attack and failing to secure power again, he now negotiated an exit. And one of the conditions he gave per report made by, there was this mediation team made of chiefs, religious authorities and opinion leaders within the country to negotiate between here to avoid bloodshed. So he agreed to step down, allegedly, because he wanted to avoid loss of life and damage to property. But then, these are the conditions he requested or was given before he resigned. And one was that there should be a guarantee of security for his allies in the military. Oh,
that's the elite group.
That would definitely cover the remnant of the elite group. And the second, there was the assurance that a guarantee for his right and security. Assurance that and then there was this condition he gave, which stated that the current guys, the Ibrahim Traore,
those taking power will respect the pledge he gave ECOWAS for restoration of democracy within 2 years.
Yes. You know, after the coup, there was this pressure, this negotiation between ECOWAS. But then I think this one is just a way of trying to hide face, because even when he was in power, despite restoring the constitution, he didn't restore the democratic.
But he was in a transition.
Yeah.
But interestingly, he didn't say anything about the transition. Or that's what he means by...
Yeah, that's what he means by...
Okay, the pledge he made to ECOWAS. I see.
And then, you know, one thing that made Sankara very popular during his time was that he was very frugal. You know, he auctioned all the expensive Benzes that were used
by the previous government.
By the previous.
Sold it to individuals.
I think he auctioned it. I don't know whether to individuals or but it was auctioned. And then he bought Renault 5, which was the cheapest car at the time in Ivory Coast for all public officials and members of government. And one of his justifications was, I said, you must choose either to have champagne for a few or safe drinking water for all. There was this sort of robust idea, these magnanimous ideas that made him very popular. And then, back on the ground, you know, when we're dealing with the Malian case, I once said that we are seeing a rising, what do you call it, anti-French sentiment across these countries. And one of the countries with that rising anti-French sentiment is Burkina Faso. Because remember, there was this French convoy that was passing through Burkina Faso going to Mali that was attacked on the road, yes, I think a year ago or so. And then during this current, what do you call it, when Damiba mounted a counter-attack and the rumor came out that it was being aided by the French, there was this attack on the French embassy. And then the jubilant crowd in the country could be seen waving the French.
So since this coup on Friday, have there been people on the streets in support of the coup?
Yeah, this is the images from the street.
I see, in spite of the curfew, or they do it within the curfew hours?
I think within the...
So in wrapping up, what is your gut feeling? What's going to happen? What is ECOWAS going to say?
Well, ECOWAS has condemned the coup.
Condemned the coup and asking for the return to the transition timetable.
Transition timetable as usual.
But that one, the Traore can do it. Traore can do the transition
But then
timetable.
the situation now is
What is he saying? He doesn't want a transition?
No, he has, I think in one of the speeches he made, he said he doesn't think the French can intervene directly into their own affairs anymore. Sort of trying to whip up the Sankara sentiment.
The anti-French sentiment. Anti-colonial sentiment.
One. He also said that he will be dealing with the Americans now.
That means what?
It could be a way of trying to ward off American pressure, to buy some time and see how the Americans will respond. It was like send an olive branch to the Americans to see how they will respond to his regime. And then thirdly, he said he also think we could work with the Russians.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah, which is a clear indication that he might, at the moment,
bring
involve
in
the Wagner group.
Wagner group, yeah.
But what I am waiting to see is that I don't know how a replacement of one European giant by another in an African country would augur well for the interest of the African country. Because one thing we must also understand is that whether France, Britain, or whoever is coming to Africa, they're not coming to Africa because they have love for the African people, because they have love for the African countries. They're only coming to benefit.
It's business.
So it depends on how you negotiate. Either you negotiate wrongly and you're exploited, or you also find a way of standing firm on the ground and get a quid pro quo. But then, would the Russians be more accommodative to Burkina Faso's interests than the French? We can't tell. Or would they be more exploitative? But if we can take cue from the days of the Soviet Union, of course, Russia today is not Soviet Union. We saw both magnanimity, we saw some sort of...
So you are thinking Russian engagement could be less exploitative than back to the colonial master, who has showed a history of being exploitative.
What I'm saying is that would the gamble to involve Russia in replacement of France actually go in the interest of Burkina Faso or not? That we can't tell.
If you ask me, I would say he should go with France.
But
because
then,
that's the devil, you know.
No. But then France is not... If it's up to me, if France has been there since colonial days and it has never done anything better, I think France should be the last person they should deal with.
But that's the devil, you know. They say the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know.
But you see, well, sometimes it's better to test the unknown devil than the angel, the unknown angel than the devil, you know. Because if anything for sure, why should Francophone countries pay for benefit of colonial rule? What is the benefit? One. Secondly, why should they save their money, about 50% of it, in French bank, only to be given loan and interest with their money? This is probably rascality or criminality. I don't know what to say. But I have...
You should tell that to Hofe Boanye.
I have... Ofe Bonyezo, I've always been a puppet. I never consider him a hero personally.
Okay. You should tell that also to Abdou Diouf of Senegal.
And then finally, I would like to end with one another inspiring quotation from Thomas Sankara.
What did he say?
He said, "We must learn to live the African way. It is the only way to live in freedom and dignity."
What is the African way? What did he mean by the African way?
You see, in this context, one thing Thomas Sankara sought to do is he's tried to use socialism as a blueprint, but he was trying to form that form of Pan-African consciousness.
Originality.
Yeah. There was this attempt to adopt the use of some, I think, there was this name they called the Atai he even recommended, which is made from the traditional...
For who? Everyone?
Yeah, for everyone, civil servant, traditional Burkinabe, cotton and there. So he's trying to implement that sense of culture. But then when we say the African way, the problem with this kind of statement is also that which part of Africa are you talking about? Because even within Africa, you have different ethnicity.
So if you say African way, West Africa is different from African way, East Africa.
Even within West Africa, we have different tribes.
Keep an eye on Burkina Faso. That's Al-Hassan Bello. Very thorough analysis. Very good show. We've been talking about this for 40 minutes. The thing with our sessions with Bello is that those who like it completely like it, 5,000%. Those who don't like it, they don't like it at all. Those who like it, they like it very much. And that's the response we get all the time from our people. Do you have some text messages for us?
Yeah,
do I have a commercial break, floor manager? I don't have a commercial break. Okay, Bello, thank you.